her speech entitled The Green Frog.
Fellow Toastmasters and honored guests, good evening.
Good evening.
There once was a little green frog who lived in the mountains with his mother. They lived by a river, secluded from anybody else. This frog was a free-spirited that enjoyed his freedom, living in extreme adventures and not listening to his mother. His poor mother would urge the frog to take her advice, to heed her warnings, but he would never listen. He would always do the opposite. When she advised him to play in the mountains and not by the rivers, he would go to the rivers. When she advised him to bring home some water, he'd bring home some flies. He always made it a point to do the complete opposite of what his mother said. So his mother tried, slowly and slowly and slowly, to try and change this little green frog, to make him a better person. She tried consoling him, asking him why does he do the opposite. He never had an answer. She tried being strict with him, asking him to do the things she wanted to do. He still never listened. But she never gave up. She kept trying and trying and trying. They grew old. Years went by. But still, he wouldn't change. The frog kept doing the opposite. She told him to go play by the river. This time he went to the mountain. She told him to bring home some flies. This time he brought home some water. She was losing her wits and didn't know what to do about this green little frog. Suddenly, one day she noticed that her health was not as it seemed. She was slowly slipping away, and she felt that her time to pass away would come soon. And so she tried harder to change her little son, because she wanted to leave behind something that he could live by, a set of rules, a set of guidance and principles, instead of this wild, free personality. But as time went by, he still refused to change. And so, finally, when death was coming, knocking at her door, she knew that the last thing she wanted from her son was a proper burial. And so she came up with a plan that on the time she would make him promise to bury her by the river, hoping that he would do the complete opposite, which is bury her in the mountain, because he had always never listened to her and always done the complete opposite. She called him in one day and said, "Son," on her last dying breath, "I need you to promise me something." "What?" said the son. "When I pass away, please promise me you'd bury me by the river." And then he looked into his mother's eyes and said, "I promised." A few days later, she passed away. The frog wept and wept and wept, realizing that he had never done anything that his mother had told him to, that he had such a rebellious streak. He never heeded her warning and got her into so much trouble. He never brought food, brought water when she asked for it. He never looked after her when she needed it. So he was determined to keep his first ever promise to his mom. So he took the body to the river and he buried it. Although he knew it wasn't a wise decision, he stuck by it because this was the last promise that he could ever keep from his mom. He knew that once the rain started, that it would be tough protecting this burial site. He knew once the storm came, it would be really tough. But he was determined to keep this last promise. Little did he know that she wanted the complete opposite because she was expecting that from him. And as he predicted, the rain came. Shortly after that, a storm came, and the little frog fought his best every single day to protect his mother's grave because it was the last promise he could keep. Until one day, the storm came and took away the grave. And then he wept. He wept so hard, regretting everything in his life. He wished for one more promise that he could keep, but he knew that wasn't going to happen. Until today, this little frog, whenever he hears the rain, cries. He learned a few things from his mother's death, and that is that experience usually knows better, and that the value that you can enforce on a person is judged by your actions. He wished he could be a better person, but he couldn't take it back. In the end, he was left alone, by himself, weeping, reflecting upon his actions, thinking about what he could do to keep any promises. But then he came up to the other conclusion. Time is not as nice as it seemed, because he was so engrossed in his life that he didn't know he had time. And then he thought about the final conclusion, which was, sometimes, although we are supposed to keep our promises, they are meant to be broken. But you just have to figure out when. Thank you.